Audio question. Are you guys getting paid for your time? Did you know that nearly 40% of your time on the road is spent sitting at delivery points, costing our industry over $3.6 billion? This is money off the table that could be yours. Tonight, we're going to dig into the impact of detention and ask the big question: should the government step in? Should other things be done? Is detention really a problem? Or is there another way to make trucking great again? It's a really intriguing question. I want to hear your take on it. Call in and share your detention stories, and let's stand together and demand the respect we deserve. Other stories in the headlines we're going to touch on tonight. Greetings to you, truck lovers and visionaries from across the heartlands. I am Boss Man, the CIC of the United States of Trucking. Back behind the golden TIV microphone, giving you news and information, and what's better, a platform for you to sound off. No other news show does this. I provide you the news, I give you an opinion and a phone number and commentary, and God bless you, anything else you need to affect change in trucking today. So I've opened up this what I call the best call-in show of our times. I'm coming to you with a skill granted by God Himself. That's right, the skill of communication. My aim is to poke holes in all these stories and bring you the information to help you in a way no other trucking channel can. Give you the information you need to help make trucking great again. Tonight's show is a little bit of a twist because I want to talk about something that's been on a lot of people's minds. So much so that it was written up in an article in FreightWaves, and we're going to get to it. It's for you, whether it's records or surveys, we're on it. So let's begin.
From the headquarters of the Truth in Broadcasting Network, introducing Truckin' City Journal and the El Rushbo of Truckin' News, Boss Man.
That's right. 860-785-3547 is our studio lines. I invite you to call to be part of the show and part of history in the making. If you have ideas for future shows or thoughts on the current show, I welcome you to send them to thatstruckinnews@outlook.com. Thatstruckinnews@outlook.com. We are broadcasting from inside the headquarters of Truckin' City Studios located here in North Carolina. Your contributions are the backbone of this channel and this whole idea of bringing you the truth in broadcasting. I invite you to become part of history in the making. Go forth, spread the word, tell others, become a subscriber. Go down below. Please like this program before it ends. Tell everybody involved, including your brother in trucking, that you have found greatness once again here at truckincity.com, truckincitymedia.com. A couple of headlines of note, not so much what we're going to talk about tonight, but I thought I'd mention tonight as we go through some of the news feeds that help you figure out what's going on in trucking. ATRI survey comes out telling drivers and carriers seeing top issues in trucking. This issue was just recently written up a couple of days. All the links, by the way, will be in the description below this live event. Please go down and read them for yourselves. Don't just take my word for it. They are good reads. But this issue of ATRI was broadcasted basically to say that parking was on the top of drivers' issues of concern, but it was only on the top of this year's issues. Overall issues, it ranked 7th. In 2024, only 2 issues made it on both the overall top 10 lists and the top 10 list for drivers, truck parking, and the state of the economy happen to be this year's top picks for discussions. Leave in the comments, tell me below if truck parking and the economy were your top concerns this year, or was it something else we need to talk about? Another article that was seen in Overdrive was talking about Kamala Harris, and it was highlighting some issues regarding diesel. But it says, and I read, and I quote, Kamala Harris trucking record, dirty diesel regulations, and how you might get taxed. It took a look at Harris's record on trucking related policies, and showed that in her one Senate term and time as vice president, she hasn't done a lot to directly impact trucking, at least not enough to impress some business leaders. So it turns out she doesn't really have the confidence of many of our industry. Again, another interesting read. I'll link it below after the show if you are so inclined. Please read on. We, as well as others in the industry, want you to be informed and keep yourself in the know, making trucking great again, one story at a time. And it's been known for some time that making truck drivers wait excessively before they can deliver freight or leave a shipper's facility, it's not just an annoyance, but it creates serious safety and economic consequences as well. So today we're going to take a look at a recent article in an edition of Materials and Handling Logistics that kind of caught my eye, and it made certain points that I want to bring to your attention. Things we need to talk about, because like everything else, detention is a problem. And though it may not be on that overall top 10, according to ATRI, it certainly does make a big difference in a person's daily operations. The more you sit, the less you get. And we need to talk about it. So let's get to it. Front and center with me tonight, I got a couple of guests. One you know and love well. He's the sole creator of the Grumpy Shuffle. He is known as the Grumpy Old Trucker. I also have with me tonight, who has joined me up to now, a gentleman named Thumper, who is our Wild West freight hauler that likes dealing with cattle and grain. They are with me in the crowd. We're going to get to them in just a moment, as well as your comments. Everyone on this panel has unique opinions and perspectives I think you need to hear. You too can get in and be heard. Just call our studio line right here at 860-785-3547. Leave your comments. Let us know what you think about tonight's show. And let's get to my opening thoughts. Friends, I'm going to tell you something. When it comes down to detention, we need to pay attention. And I'm not raising that one on a rhyme on purpose. You know, a topic that'll make your blood boil and your wheels turn. It's a nasty business of detention. Now, we're all aware of the delays, right? But did you know that a whopping 39% of the time truck drivers are stuck waiting at delivery points? It's a pain, right? 39% of all time you're stuck waiting. And this isn't just a minor inconvenience. It's a giant wrench in the works, both our industry and the economy as a whole. We're talking about safety, billions of dollars down the drain, and the continued stranglehold of restrictive regulations. See, we're not getting any help from the shippers and the receivers, but we're also not getting recognized by the regulators that put these restrictions on our hours of service. So why does this problem even become front and center? Well, it's not because of us. You know, we're not asking for too much. We're not doing anything wrong. We're trying to do the best we can with the resources we have. And because too many in the industry have allowed this nonsense to become the norm, here it is, straight in our face. As the American Transportation Research Institute lays out, the costs are astronomical, with $3.6 billion lost in direct expenses and $11.5 billion in lost productivity. Truckers like you and I are footing the bill for what's essentially a broken supply chain. So I want you to get a hold of something of a discussion that was had not too long ago Um, well, just hear this. Hear this.
There, but as far as actual time lost, the industry as a whole lost 135 million hours in 2023. So obviously a huge number.
Is that all time spent at loading docks and or at shipper locations, or are they calculating that only after the 2 hours? That often detail that a little bit for me, because just trying to get a sense of what figures they use, what definition of detention they used, I guess, or dwell time is sometimes called.
Yeah, they used both in the report.
Okay.
They looked at total dwell time and then for actual detention time, they used the general 2 hours.
Okay.
Over 2 hours at a facility.
Think about that. They got a lot of calculations put into what happens. Now let's get into the dirty details, guys. These federal hours of service regulations, are they the problem? Do they need to be modified? Do they need to be changed? I mean, they've actually, in a sense, turned us truckers into scapegoats for the inefficiencies that started with the shippers and the receivers. Well, let's be clear. We've tried to address this. Big associations like the ATA, the TCA, the OOIDA, they've all lobbied to hold shippers accountable. But here we are, still fighting to be fairly compensated for the time we waste waiting to deliver goods or get loaded. And it's not just about the money, okay? It's about the dignity of doing the job. When almost 50% of fleets charge detention fees, but yet only half of that gets invoiced and then gets paid. It's a clear message. The shippers don't respect our time. Let me know in the comments if you think likewise or if you disagree. And boy, it's time they really actually do look at this. It's time they feel the heat of our engines and the strength of our resolve and understand the true cost of their practices on our industry and on the American economic backbone. I'd like to engage you in the audience. I want to get your take on this. So grab your phone, dial our studio line, give us a call. Let us know what you think. 860-785-3547. Let's have a conversation right now and figure out, should there be more done to combat this issue of detention? So speaking of guests, we have Grumpy Old Trucker and we have Thumper with us. Let's talk to these guys, both equal in experience and time on the road, I think. Grumpy, what do you think about the issue of just being taxed with having to stay at a shipper or receiver for longer than acceptable hours and then not getting paid? What goes through your mind when you read a story like this?
It's uncalled for.
Mhm.
Actually, the company I currently work for actually charges after 2 hours of sitting there at a place. If you want my opinion, that these shippers take advantage of that, and receivers also, because I've been to some of them. They'll wait till almost the last 30 minutes and then start unloading, and that tells you they can get stuff unloaded pretty quickly. They're just farting around, and it's
Right.
ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, we don't get paid well enough. I mean, I think I make, at most places, depending on the shipper or receiver, detention pay, sometimes around maybe $20 an hour. That
Mhm.
seems like a lot to a lot of people, but as a driver, it's not. Because, I mean, I'm out here and I'm not making anything when I'm sitting, so it burns up my log time. So that
Right.
means I can't drive. And if I'm not driving, I'm not turning the wheel, so I'm not making money. So, yeah,
Right.
I'm just not a big fan of it.
Yeah, it's not a big idea. Out of all the times you've been to shippers and receivers, how often, I mean, because they quoted in that article and that opinion that I wrote up myself, but I used facts um, from the FreightWaves article that I referenced. Again, all the links will be below. The facts in that said 39% of all time most people spend on the road is usually accounted by layovers and detention. That was what was stated in the article. Now, considering that, now transmit that to you, and Grumpy, how long out of, maybe put it into a number, how long out of all the times you get loads in, like, say, a year, do you find yourself waiting and not getting the miles that you want to get? I mean, do you find it to be similar to the statistics in that FreightWaves article, or do you find it different?
That and then some. I
And
mean,
then,
seriously.
yeah, okay. Why do you suppose most of that is? I mean, do you think that that is an industry problem, or do you think that's just who you deal with?
Well, it's where a lot of these shippers and receivers have gotten spoiled to the factor that most companies say, "Oh, we'll give you 2 hours free." So, you've got your warehouse workers that some of them are busy and can't get to you right away, but then you've got some that are just, I don't know, they disappear somewhere in a warehouse and they've got time to get you unloaded and get you out of there. And
Yeah,
they'll wait to the last second. Like I said, I've been to some and right to the last 30 minutes, and then whammo, they're loaded me and I'm done and I'm out of there. So if they go over, it's only a minute or two over detention time. So it's not like I can charge them for that. But what am I going to
right.
get? $1? You
Yeah,
know?
well, in a large sense, in that case, you're at the mercy of the person you work for. So, I mean, it flows downhill. It first starts with what the shipper or receiver is willing to accept, but then also flows down to the carrier. Then it goes from the carrier level down to the driver. So, in a large sense, if you're a driver for a carrier, if you're just a driver, you can't really do too much to battle this. But if you're the carrier and you're that person that full stop comes to you, you play hell trying to argue with the person above you that's responsible for paying it. So, I can see where industry wide it really is a big problem because you've got a lot of steps uphill to counter the argument, my time is worth my time. So,
Exactly.
it really becomes an uphill struggle for almost every one of us out here. Thumper, I understand this might not be as big of an issue where you're concerned. I mean, with grain.
Actually,
Oh,
actually, you'd be surprised.
okay, correct me. I learn again. This is my purpose for the show. How
Yep.
big of a concern is detention and layover in your side of the industry? Tell me.
So on the grain side, like especially this time of year, we're in the middle of harvest right now. So I got drivers waiting on farmers and everything else, and that are going into the elevators so they can get the product out of the elevator to go elsewhere.
Hmm.
I actually just had a driver actually sit for 4 hours.
Right.
There's nothing I can really do about it. And as far as the cattle side of it, we are always waiting to unload. The longest I've ever waited to unload a cattle trailer was 8.5 hours. And
Wow.
that was at the plant. That wasn't the feedlot. That was at the plant.
And you have
So
actual do you have remedies for that? Yeah, because it's not just you being paid for the time. You've got cattle that's really likely not going to sit idle for 8 hours waiting on everybody else. You know?
no, well, according to the BQA, which is the test that every cattle driver has to do. I mean, as simple as that. If you're going to transport cattle, if you're ever thinking about getting into the industry, you have to take this test.
Right.
Cattle are allowed to be in a trailer for 26 hours before they have to get unloaded, and then after that 26 hours, they have to sit out of the trailer for 16 hours.
Okay. Didn't know those
So,
numbers, but that's good to know.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
they drill that into your head when you take this test.
Yeah.
And
Obviously, I've never done anything with cattle, so I have no idea
yeah.
what you said, but I get the
No.
gist. So there's regulations
Yeah.
or not procedures. I should.
Yeah.
I
So
would
I mean,
say.
we got rules and stuff we need to follow too, and everything else. Just like the reefer drivers, the dry van, the flatbedders, and everything else.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, when you're sitting at a truck stop waiting to go to the plant because their barn is full to get them off. I mean, you're just sitting there, and I mean, you got to check on them. You do this and other stuff, but a lot of times that's the time where you get to catch up on your sleep.
Yep.
So there's an advantage and then there's a disadvantage at it too. I mean, I feel bad for my drivers, and I'm trying to figure out a way to compensate them for that time. But it's a hit and miss with the cattle side. And as far as the grain side goes, there are a few places where we have contracts that says that we have to write down our time when we show up.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter how long we've been sitting there. It has to, the moment our truck, the front tires hit the front of that property, we have to write down the time. and
Yep.
to the moment we unload. And
Yeah.
if it's within a certain amount of hours, we
Right.
get detention pay.
Well, I think, and I'm gonna address two things. One, I'm gonna address a comment down below. Seven C's. I think personally it should not be an issue. His comment says, "Is detention usually an issue for drive-in and reefer only?" I can speak for tanker, open deck, and hopper, but I basically don't have to wait. I can say this: it should not be an issue anywhere unless you're dealing with specialized freight. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it the same as you and everybody watching are. But unfortunately, with drive-in and reefer, it can be an issue. I can't speak for reefer. There's somebody that usually joins us that probably could, if he'd be so unkind. You're welcome to join me and straighten me on this one, Fate. But it typically is just simply because of the number of places you may go. With drive-in, you can have multi-stop loads. And with reefer, I know two people in the reefer business now that do currently well, they do well financially with multi-stop loads, but if not timed correctly, not done right, wait time and detention can be a problem. Typically, not so much with them. I haven't heard much about it, but I'm going on my experience having worked with Landstar. I'm now in a position where I do household goods. But there are times when, even with the household goods that I move, I'm doing conventions. You doing what they call loadouts. You sometimes can sit longer than 2 hours, and it just goes without saying. Anytime you're involved in stuff like that, know clearly going in what your time is. And just like Thumper said a minute ago, 9 times out of 10, you shouldn't have to write anything down because you've got hours of service backing you up. But in Thumper's case, he drives a truck that doesn't have an ELD requirement, so he has to write it down and report it in other ways. But, that being said, you really do have to account for every minute of your time on the road for obvious reasons. It just makes perfect sense. Seven C's, I appreciate the question and the observation. Griff comes in and says, baked to the test to it, but where do you get made or broken at stuff? Is this the first delivery on a multi-stop? If they take forever, you're kind of poop creek when you're doing. I think I get what you're saying. You kind of broke up on the wording, but multi-stops, you really don't have much choice because you're at the not only beck and call of the schedule, but you also have to deal with when they're open and when they're closed. My example I can best give is, one outfit, I had to deliver several stores from a Target distributor to several stores, and all stores generally had a receiving time from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. And there was a lot of miles between the first stop and the last stop. I had 5 on total. That whole delivery took me 2 days, and I was not compensated for any of the in between. Only delay on the first load, which took 3 hours. So I was given an hour's worth of detention. And trust me, when you collect an hour's worth of detention from Target, it's like making a law in Congress. You wait forever. But that's really the only real reference I've got on that. But yeah, sometimes multi-stops can be generically a pain in the butt because of the fact that you're getting multiple stops and they all have to be scheduled and logistically coordinated. My question to you in the audience and those watching, should the government get in and mandate minimums or detentions? I know if midlife are watching, you want more. No, the reason I'm asking this is because the article went on to say that considering the extensive economic impact of detention, they thought that the only way to really mitigate the problem was for the government to step in and regulate fees, ensuring drivers are compensated. And they also dovetail on asking, would this be better or would it create more bureaucratic red tape? Now, what do you guys think? What say you, Grumpy?
I got an opinion on this one.
No, go ahead, Thumper. You go ahead. You sounded off first, by all means.
So, do I think they need to set a standard? Yes. But there's a bad side to that. Then they're going to be like, oh, hey, more money for us. The government's all about money. If they can figure out a way to get money out of us, and if it's them making regulations or anything like that, that's what it's going to turn into. They're going to be like, oh, well, if you're getting $100, I'm throwing numbers out.
Right.
Well,
Right.
if you're gonna get $100 an hour just to sit there, we're gonna take 45 of that dollar an hour, and you're gonna have to pay us.
Right.
So
Yeah.
do they need to step in? Yes, to a degree, but it could bite us in the butt in the end.
It could. I mean, because the article also notes that large industry groups like the ATA and OIDA have all lobbied for shippers to be held accountable, but there's been little progress, suggesting that voluntary measures aren't working and stronger enforcement, potentially through government regulation, might be necessary. Now, that's their take. My take is similar to yours in that if you do too much regulating and or mandating, you could open a Pandora's box for safety issues down the road. What say you, Grumpy? Are you with me there, buddy? Or did you
Yeah, I'm
lose it?
here.
Oh, okay. So
Hit
what
the
say
wrong
you?
button. Sorry.
Happens.
Be honest with you, regulating through the government seems to not work so well on a lot of things. And something like this, they tried put partially their hand into it, but it doesn't seem to work well. The shippers and receivers still don't give a tooey hooey. And, we're still stuck at these places for hours on end. Now, I will say this would be good. If they're going to do stuff like that, then I think they should provide us a place to sleep for our 10-hour break if we need to. That's what I think. But what do I know? I'm just a driver,
Well, I mean, you're kind of flipping the coin on its head because, I mean, a lot of people, and I've even covered this in previous lives, there are places known as bullpens that are being provided at some shippers. Now, that's kind of growing in popularity. More places are kind of doing that, but I think they're realizing it's not more an issue where they need to pay for. They're just making it a safety thing because it's come down to their attention that forcing a driver to drive off hours is dangerous and it's a safety problem. So, you can either have one side of the argument or you can have the other. You can get paid for your time or you can just have a safe place to go. And I don't think the industry really cares which side of the argument you're on. They're just going to do one or the other. You had something here, Thumper?
Yeah, I do. I mean, honestly, the best thing to do is if it's somebody that you're constantly repeating going to, like the same shipper, the same receiver, whatever the case may be, get it in black and white after, say, an X amount of time. You get this many dollars for detention pay per hour. And right there, it's in black and white, and they can't back out of that.
Yeah.
It's in your contract.
Thank you. I mean, I was going to go there anyway, but yeah, every time you deal with, whether it's a carrier that fights on your behalf, or if it's a shipper, if you're your own MC and you're your own entity, always look at the wording and all the contracts. A lot of people do that. They go into these things, they get the rate cons, they look at it, they see the important numbers like dollars per mile, dollars per load, dollars per stop. What am I going to net at the end of all this? Those are the things they think about. But what they don't think about are the consequences of what if I'm late? How much do I have to pay? What don't I get if X happens? What do I get if B happens or if C happens? And they wait until the problem itself happens. And then they say, well, why didn't I see that? Or they kick themselves in the butt when all of a sudden they have this whole minimum of I've got to wait 4 hours to get paid for detention instead of actually getting what's due them because they didn't look at the contract prior and they should have seen that before they got the load. And then they got, well, okay, I'm in trouble now. I wanted 5 hours of detention, but I can't get it because I didn't look. Go ahead,
another thing too is people who are getting into trucking or going to a new company or something, you may be an employee to them, but you still have a contract. Make sure you read that contract to see what you're getting for your detention or layovers or whatever it is. And if you're unsure, ask questions.
Amen. The only question that's a stupid one is one you never ask. Welcome to Griff USMC, calling us on our studio line, 860-785-3547. You too can have this discussion. What you got to say, Griff? Thank you for calling.
Well, like I ahead and stuff. Usually, it's like, for example, with a multi-stop, your first stop is what makes and breaks you, because if they take 8 hours, you can't make it to the rest of your loads, and sometimes they'll hold that against you. But what you can do, though, is call the shipper ahead of time. Find out if you can deliver early. You know, you got time, but if you're stuck at a set appointment,
Yep.
you got to try to figure out where you're going to stop at and how best manage your time.
Yeah. One of the practices
but-
that's pretty standard in my industry with the household movers is what's something called a pre-call. You know, I mean, a minimum of 2 hours before you arrive on site, whether it's scheduled or not. A good practice is to call ahead. Ask the important questions. Do I need to know about a change of venue? Am I going somewhere different? Is there something I need to be aware of? And exactly what you point out, Griff, is probably a good thing to do. Pre-calls will solve a lot of those issues.
Well, on your Raycon, it'll give you set like. Well, I've dealt with one example. I had where I did a multi-stop, and it said for times of delivery was between 5 and 12:30. Everything.
Yep.
So by the time I got to that, I figured, okay, I couldn't deliver because it was at 12:30, so I had to wait until the next day.
Right.
Everything. But anyways, it depends on the shipper. I did a Tyson's run from Michigan down into Dallas, Texas, and I actually delivered the load into Dallas, Texas 2 days early. And I forgot to call the brokers, tell them that I delivered it a couple days ago, and I was already on a different load.
Yeah.
And I apologize about that. But,
yeah.
you know,
In a case like that, you're stuck on your own time waiting without being paid. So unfortunately, it's always good. It's always good to be early rather than late, though.
Well, yeah, I'd rather try to get down there and stuff and get in there early. Stuff's where I know, but just in case you run into traffic, like right now, I'm driving through Columbia, Missouri stuff, and I'm starting to hit some traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. Worst time you probably could be there, but God bless you. Be safe. You know, concentrate on that road in front of you, my friend.
Oh, yeah. I'm planning on stopping in here about 30 miles. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah.
Hold up.
I'm just trying to put my 2 cents in. So.
Yep. Don't go anywhere, Griff. You want to add something, Thumper? Go ahead.
Oh, he didn't have to stay on, but I was just gonna add. I mean, it's that relationship that you build with your shippers and your receivers that'll get you in and out of the door a lot faster. Like I have a good relationship with practically anywhere I go. It doesn't matter if it's hop or bottom or whatever. And I every once in a while I need to ask a favor, but like, hey, I'm running 20 minutes behind. I know you guys close at this time. Do you mind if a guy stays behind and lets me unload so I can get down the road faster? And if you have a good relationship with that person, 9 times out of 10, they will bend over backwards for you. And it's like my grandma always said, kill them with kindness. That will get you a long ways. It really will.
It will. Well, on that note, let me ask you, do you think customers, likewise, whether it be shippers, receivers, do you think they care about the impact of what we're talking about, or do you think it's just lip service? Do you think because the research mentioned in this article hints that many customers remain indifferent to the impacts of detention. So how much do you think they really care about improving this issue, and what do you think it would take to get them to act? I mean, beyond the whole discussion we're having now, what do you think? Griff, what do you think? Hold on. What do you think, Griff?
I kind of missed the question a little bit, but if you, like Thumper said, if you get a good relationship with the shippers and you go there quite often, you can set up a routine. Okay, well, you get a load, you go to this place, like once or twice a week. Well, you find out, okay, if you get there early, or if it's first come, first serve, you get there early, stuff, you get in line, stuff, you get unloaded, you get gone.
Yep.
But but then like sometimes though the brokers will put on there stuff, you got to be there at a certain time, stuff and everything. But then you come to find out it's first come, first serve.
Yeah. Well, they're all different, but as you say earlier, calling ahead and having a good relationship should help battle all that. So kudos to you for mentioning it. And once again, thank you for the call, Griff. You certainly continue calling. And by the way, keep her rolling, my friend. Be safe. Don't make any mistakes out there unless you learn from them.
Will do. All right. You guys be safe tonight, wherever you're at in the country.
God bless. Same to you, my friend. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
Whether it's talking about detention or anything, I think personally, what you said, Thumper, a minute ago makes a lot of sense. He backed you up on it. I think more emphasis does need to be put to awareness. I think people need to be more aware of what is at stake here. Grumpy, what say you on the issue? Do you think customers care about what we go through, or do you think it's all just lip service?
Some do, some don't. And you never know who does and who doesn't unless you're there a lot.
Yeah. Well, something's got to give. Because obviously the issue's not solving itself. And the more people talk about it, it just doesn't seem like anybody's really making any headway. Earlier I mentioned, ATA, TCA, OID, they've all year after year said the same thing over and over again. And that word lip service is just all I keep hearing in the back of my mind. So here's another question. Why do you think more drivers aren't pushing for compensation on detained loads? Do you think there's a lack of understanding, or do you think they just don't think they're worth it? What do you think, guys? Thumper, what do you think?
I think it's a combination of both, and a lot of it is I think the way the world is nowadays through my eyes is people are scared to ask for it because they're afraid that they're going to lose that contract or they're going to lose something else. Honestly, if the shippers and receivers that actually sit down and look at their books on how much money they're spending on detention pay and stuff, they'll probably sit there and be like, oh, hey, we got to change something here.
Well, you think about it, 39% is a staggering number. And when you really think about what that means in terms of dollars and cents, if you gross $200,000, 39% of that, you're vested almost $85,000 in detention time by those standards. Are you willing to give up, 30, almost 40% of your income? Come on. Statistics, by the way, reveal that less than half of the drivers surveyed even attempt to seek compensation for detention. So, are we just unaware of the fact that we can, or do we simply just feel like we're not worth it?
I agree. A lot of people have it in their mind that they're just not worth it anymore.
Yep.
The way the world is nowadays, they just, I'm not gonna lie. There's times where I'm out here and I deal with certain people. I feel like I ain't worth the person I am and the business I own.
That moves off to another topic of discussion. I see what you're saying, but the only thing I've got to go on, and Grumpy, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I've got this mindset. Okay, I once did a FEMA load, and I not too long ago opined on the results of that. I was at a load for 12 days. I was given layover for a large degree of those days, and I had to fight for a little bit of the detention. But overall, I netted $8,000 worth of detention pay, and I had a $2,400, I think roughly $2,400 load pay for that load itself. I got the full load, detention and everything. Boom, I got it. Now, it took me a long time to get it. But, when you juxtapose that against 39%, on a statistical average, as pointed out in this Freightwaves article, that's a huge difference. Would you sit somewhere for 12 days for, like, hypothetically less than $3,000? Personally, would you do that?
For less than $3,000, 12 days sitting there. I don't know. That's pretty good because my layover rate,
a day.
Yeah, my layover rate's only $100 a day. So I could go that. That's not bad, but I'd get rather bored and I'd have to figure something out. So there better be
Well,
something to do around there.
yeah. Well, I mean, the 8,000 was the overall. It wasn't all detention. I mean, there was other charges associated with it, and it was a FEMA load. So, I mean, there was a lot of other things going on with that particular load. So, I don't mean it to brag. I got the paycheck or any. All I'm stating is that statistically speaking, I wasn't going to accept anything less than 100% of what I was worth. And I went into it knowing I was going to wait, number one. Number two, I clearly stated and had put on the contract the stipulations that detention is paid this way, layovers this, and I made sure the people that represented that load stuck to exactly what they said. Don't misrepresent me, I'm telling you what, you do that and you lose my business real quick without flash, you know. So they were good on it. It took a while for them to pay because they argued every chance they could, but I stuck to my guns. And it goes back to the old argument of know your worth, you know. Do you think that the FMCSA is doing enough? I mean, they have acknowledged the problem exists, and they put out quite a few press releases, and they've made a lot of headway on this, talking about it. But it's taking the action of a lot of other groups to get involved too. So I'm asking, should the FMCSA, should they implement more robust oversight or more rulemaking? Yeah, okay. Let's talk about the more regulations argument. I hate when he does that to me. But I mean, it might actually come to that. I mean, because by itself alone, nobody's actually doing anything, and it seems like we're hung out to dry. So, Thumper, what do you think? Do you think it's an issue where they do need to get involved, or do you think we're just we're just being too preemptive? What do you think?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle on this one. I mean, like I stated previously, if the FMCA or government, whoever gets involved, they're going to start putting more regulations down. And honestly, in my opinion, yes, I understand for safety and all that other stuff, but I think we have enough regulations that we need to figure out what works best for us on those regulations to be more productive. So, I mean, do I think they need to step in? Yes. Do I think they need to not step in? Yes. It's kind of up in the air. I mean, when does a guy say enough is enough? Hey, I need help.
Exactly. Sometimes it does involve. Now, I mean, if you're the driver working for the carrier, you have the backing of the carrier behind you, so you've got somebody fighting for you. 9 times out of 10, if they're any decent carrier, if they know what they're doing, they're going to fight for you because they're getting paid too. Because usually, you know, driver to carrier, there's always a split there somehow. So you're benefited by having a quality carrier on your back, watching, you know, what goes on where you're concerned. Yeah. Grumpy, what do you think? Do you think the FMCSA needs to get involved and set something up, or do you think it's like Thumper thinks it's probably best left alone?
I'd have to go with what Thumper said. You start getting the government involved and they start picking at things. And I mean, there again, keyboard warriors / pencil jockeys, you know, I mean, they get involved and it makes more of a mess of it than anything. Some of it may be helpful, yes, but then there's a lot of it that's going to be a havoc on us. And we don't need more of that. We've got enough of that crap out here.
For the benefit of the midlives out there and those that seem to want to poke me every time I suggest involving government agencies, and no, I'm not suggesting regulation. The story itself pointed out questions and posed different things. I'm raising it to you to get your insight and your feedback. So don't come after me about this. You want more regulations. He does that all the time. So what do you guys think about enhanced communication and today's technology? I mean, unfortunately, Thumper, you can't really say much about the ELDs and communication tech because you do a lot of things by paper. But think about it. The article mentions that improved communications and tech-based strategies like drop-in hooks and other logistic solutions can help reduce wait times. But are these measures genuinely feasible, or are they just a Band-Aid on a much bigger issue? What do you think, Grumpy? Oh my God.
Or Grumpy.
Yeah, Grumpy. You two got to change your names. You're messing with me. What do you think, Grumpy?
Sorry. What was that question again, sir?
The article mentions improved communications and tech-based strategies as a likely solution to the problem, doing things like dropping hooks and other logistic solutions. Do you think those measures are genuinely feasible to help decrease this likelihood of detention, or do you think they're band-aids on a much bigger issue?
Actually, I am a big fan of dropping hooks. The problem with that is a lot of your carriers, like mine, are small. Yeah, we have quite a few trailers, but when they start dropping and hooking, if they don't hurry up and get them loads loaded on the trailers so we can pick them up and get them out of there, we wind up with trailers using it basically for storage, or an empty trailer sitting somewhere and have to go and fetch it. So that's not going to help a whole lot, because it's just going to, it's just like you said, it's kind of a band-aid, because the sore's still going to be there and you're still going to want to scratch at it. Feels good when you scratch it, but then you make it bleed,
Those watching, comment and let me know, or call our studio line 860-785-3547. Let us know your thoughts. When you talk about carriers and the effect of dropping hooks, the article suggested smaller carriers have less leverage in negotiating detention fees. So do you think the big carriers are better equipped to handle these costs? If so, what do you think it means for the competitiveness of guys like you and me? We're working for smaller carriers. Somebody like you, Thumper, you've only got, a host of trucks, not many people working for you on your behalf. Think about it. Do you think the big guys have more power in affecting the detention game, or do you think it's just something that we're going to be eternally fighting? What do you think?
It could bite me in the butt, and it can't. I mean, we could be proactive doing dropping hooks and stuff, but like you said, who's going to cover that bill? I mean, like a lot of excuse me, a lot of stuff we do with hopper bottom, and
Right.
I can use hopper bottom for example because we are leased on to another company for hopper
Right.
bottom, and that hopper bottom company has 90 some trailers,
Right.
and we do a lot of drop and hook with those guys. They got a base in Billings, and they got one in Minneapolis, Mapleton, North Dakota. So I actually have a guy who does nothing but drop and hooks. He runs back and forth. A lot of times, like if there's short trailers over in Mapleton, he'll take a loaded one out to Billings, grab an empty one, and come all the way back. Hey, that works out great. And as far as the detention goes with the hopper bottom with them, they take care of the detention for me, but they're again money.
Everybody's moving. Everybody's moving, and it's more efficient. Sounds like.
Yeah. And then like on the detention part, well, they could get us the detention, but they're taking a cut too.
Yeah. Everybody's going to take a cut. Well, everybody's going to take a cut when you're talking about the difference between the smaller and the larger. Go ahead, Grumpy.
Yeah, real quick, I'll touch on this subject, and I've got to get going myself and take care of stuff. Basically, I'll say this. I noticed whenever I worked for maker carriers, the maker carriers would at least take care of the drivers most of the time, and would go ahead and pay that detention out if they saw fit that they earned a detention. So I mean, if they eat it in their pocketbook, so be it. Then they still billed for it, of course. But someone small like this company I work for currently, we don't get it until they get it, and there's no telling when they're going to get it, So I have to write it on paper on my bill of lading, basically when I got there, when I left there, and they really prefer we have somebody, initial or sign off of it from that company, so that way they can charge them easier. So yeah, bigger companies are a little different than smaller ones, and I see it as, hey, bigger companies take care of their drivers usually a little bit better on that than a smaller company.
They do.
So
they do. But the smaller companies, I think, are less equipped to handle these big times when large amounts of detention are in question, I think, because they don't have the resources behind them. So they are kind of behind the eight ball on that. So we really should address that industry-wide. Let me ask one final question before you all leave. Grumpy, go if you got to. But do you think detention is just another symptom of an industry that's broke? Or do you think there's something else going on here. With drivers like you and I often facing the long hours, low pay, and minimal control over schedules, detention can be a problem, but it can also be a symptom of a deeper problem within the industry. So what do you guys think? Thumper, you first.
Oh, let Grumpy go if he's got to go.
Oh, yeah, if you got to go too, that's, either way. One of you, I don't care.
Go ahead there, Thumper. Go ahead.
Okay.
Now I got a reason. Go ahead. Grumpy, you tell me. You answer the question first.
Okay, well, I'll be honest with you. It's over the years that I've driven and had detention paid out to me, it really hasn't gotten any better. And the reason it hasn't gotten any better is because, as you said, it keeps getting a Band-Aid put on it. And, these companies don't want to have to pay it if they can get away with it. And it's ridiculous because it's money we earn, not what I mean. The company should get compensated somewhat, yes, but we should at least be compensated for our time. So, however many miles we should be down the road in that amount of time, that's the minimum we should receive. Not
Right.
just like me, $20 an hour. I mean, I make more than that if I drive so many miles in a day. So
Very
remember,
true. Very true.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there you have it.
Listen, guys, before we close out today's show, I want to offer one thing to you guys. My tip for every trucker out there is know your worth. Keep a record of every hour and every mile you spend doing the job on the road, especially if it involves detention. Keep a log of these delays, the hours, the broken promises, because when it comes to demanding better, whether it's from the shippers, the brokers, or the lawmakers, you're going to want receipts, and you're going to want to have everyone behind you telling you how to best get the job done. That's my 2 cents in this whole thing. You got anything to add to that one, Thumper?
Of course I do. I always have something to add here, guys. So we've had an awesome live stream here. It's been great. Know what you're worth. Read your contracts. Enjoy what you do. God bless America. God bless everybody in the affected areas in the country between the wildfires and the hurricanes. And just remember, we don't do it just for us and our family. We do it for you guys.
God bless that one. Subscribe to our channel, Truckin' City News, and look for all of our exciting opinion-based content coming to you, helping you make trucking great again. We do this for the right reason, telling the world that we can make trucking great again. Look for our World of Trucking, which you see right here. Hit the like button and look for our shows on Truckin' City called Frontline, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Never miss the beat. Always check us out. Remember, trucks that make the delivery. It's trucks. You guys are what make the difference. Until next time, this is Boss Man reminding you, keep it real, keep the faith, above all else, keep it rolling.